First, I must apologize to the souls of the house because I'm wearing the cheekbones of the mask only. Like a pill bottle whose name is yours, name tagged on the side of a factory of risks, teeth of the mask now. Back of the head of the mask now, a new phase of anti-anthropomorphism, fending for real faces stuck with one of those cultures that believes I chose this family. I'm not creative, just the silliest of the revolutionaries. My blood drying on my only jacket, the police state psychic middleman evangelizing for the creation of an unmasses, an unmedgar, blood of a lamb less racialized or awesome prison sentence, right angle made between a point on a Louisiana plantation and a 5-year-old's rubber ball 3 feet high and falling like a deportee plane to complete my interpretation of garden variety genocide. I am small talk about loving your enemies a little more realistically, about paper tigers and also gold. I need my left hand back, broke my neck on a piano key, found paradise in a fist fight. Maybe I should check into the Cuba line. Watching the universe last metronome, some call black Jacobins. Hey, just wait. These religions will start resigning in a decade or two. Some colorfully, some transactionally in a cotton Gothic society, class betrayal, gone glasses. Ironically, my window started fogging over too as I was trying to figure out which Haiti would get me through the winter, which poem houses souls. Which socialist breakthroughs like taking 10 steps back and finally trying stillness, like introducing Gabriel Prosser to the loneliest monk. I remember childhood. Remember the word childhood being a beginning. Scribbling on an amazing grace, I rented this body from some circumference of slavery. Remember being kicked out the Midwest. Strange fruit theater, lithium in circuses, like-minded stomachs, the ruling class blessing their blank checks with levy phone, with opioid tea. Sentient dollar bills yelling to each other, pocket to pocket, cello stands in the precinct for a company counter-revolutionaries. My mother raised me with a simple pain. A poet loses his mind, like the room has weather, or first girlfriend gravity. Difference between me and you, the madness wants me forever. A pair of apartments defining both my family and political composure. Books behind my back, bail money paved into the streets, playing euphoria cliche. Bracing for the medicine's recoil, sharing a dirty deli sounds with my friends, black Jacobins, underground topography of a grandmother's hands, psychology of the mask now. Teeth of the mask again. As children are brilliant and charming before they are murdered. And God dies there too, running among them. Every poet belongs in Gaza. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in Iraq. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm. Ricochet sewers near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. In the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part, my body brings down to Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest poster. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your death for last. You're a witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. A neighborhood making a lot of fuss over his demise. A new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder. The figment of village, a new news to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavers some time, didn't it? The tanted screeches of military bolts and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. Now, sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque piece plastic and bold action audiences. The Medgar Evers second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondle news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm chains imperialisms, simple policing versus structural frenzies, elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums, artless bleeding, and the challenge of watching civilians think, man, terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads and their arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war, well, with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus, I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. You know, apparently too much of San Francisco was not there in the first place. This dream requires more condemned Africans, or put another way, state violence rises down, or still life is just getting warmed up, or army life is looking for a new church and ignored all other suggestions, or folktale writers have not made up their minds as to who is gonna be their friends. You know, this is the worst downtown yet, and I've borrowed a cigarette everywhere. I've taken many a walk to the back of a bus that led on out the back of a storyteller's prison sentence, then on out the back of slave scars, but this is my comeback face. I left my watch on the public bathroom sink and took the toilet with me. Threw it at the first bus I saw, eating single mothers half alive. It flew through the bus line number, then on out the front of the White House. Hopefully you find comfort downtown, but if not, we brought you enough cigarette filters to make a decent winter coat. A special species of handshake lets all know who's king. What's the lifespan of uniform cloth? This coffin needs to quit acting like those are birds singing. Rusty nails have no wings, have no voice other than that of a white world dying. They're book pages in the gas pump. Catchy, isn't it? The way 3 nooses is the rule, or the way potato sack masks go so well with radio codes, or the way condemned Africans fought their way back to the ocean, only to find waves made of 1920s burnt up piano parts, European backdoor deals, and red flowers for widows who spent all day in the sun mumbling in San Francisco. Red flowers was the color of a doctor visit. There are book titles in the streets. Book titles like Hero, You Make a Better Zero, or Hey Fur Coat Lady, the President is Dead, or Pay Me Back in Children, or They Hung Up Their Bodies in Their Own Museums, and other book titles pulled from a drum solo. Run here, hero. Lie at the hiding place. All the bullets in 10 precincts know where to go. There's no heaven nor any other good idea in the sky. Politics means that people did it and people do it. Understand that when in San Francisco and other places that was never really there, I bet this ocean thinks it's an ocean, but it's not. It's just 6th and Mission Street. All know who's king. King of thin things, you know. Like America, I'm proud to deserve to die. I'm gonna eat my dinner extra slow tonight in this police state candy dispenser you all call a neighborhood. No set of manners goes unpunished. Never mind a murderer's insomnia or the tea kettle preparing everyone for police sirens. These little societies wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. Citizen testaments bent on offering me a nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanents turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is the dangerous twin. Black August to the mountaintop, balcony on my bedroom floor. You know, they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you in your broken neck from their fullest euphoria. From the loyalty oath of their great superstition, loyalty oath of their agrarian reform, I returned to my mother completely disrespected. For peeling the heat off of purgatory, they killed poets like me. Walked me away from my poems, never to be heard from again. In this final industrial complex of bloodlines picked over, picked through, a sport and spiritual death, or your devil at least half made, police become a pretty word. I'm reading a lynch mob shoestrings like they were tea leaves, teaching you how to write about cities. It's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against your chump change your chump to be mocked even with a gun in your car. A cubit of needlework spelled tune for the proletariat, the relapse ministry. Talented people curled up in the fetal position next to a diamond dime. Just another service day in the theatrics of tea house fascism. In a bouquet of surveillance cameras. In the poverty of God. New blue eyes. Corpses of water. A newly potted presidency. One big shiny coin if you ask an animated capitalism and other non-literal voids. Killing is white freedom. The deification of hyphens. Medicine bread and picture shows. Great protests in L.A. Guests of our ink. Drop-kicking Rose in the graveyard, D.C. Mink, like a stone torn in half, the pen advances, despite CIA guideposts, despite non-African past and futures, a metaphorical but not surreal day in a horn-ridden life, horn player, improvising king, like a radio prize fight featuring Shango himself, a real hand sweeps the land of racism. May I return to the ground? May I make progress with the gun? On our Mother Emanuel, they put on music that evening. A swing-type body language for you to drink with fermented $5 bills for your body language, some applause. My past stomach lining, neither a good thing nor a bad thing, like being psychic on the way to a lethal injection. It'll sit you down with Lady Day leading youth who surrendered their souls to Africa too soon. Polythought floating in the cup of water she saved me, accessing my stomach. accessing the love of the American lynched. Coat sleeves wooden avalanche to the wrist. Our mother Emmanuel, avalanche to the sharp keys. Pain, what a deal you make with pain. A piano makes sense for them. Laying hands on the world gradually. Addressing the bending necks on the streets of the north. Travel sailing in pain, repeating pain in the north. 10 trigger fingers on that piano, if harmony would have me. Putting 100 fights on every direction off of the Lady Day. Leaning on trees again, recruiting the countryside itself, saying, lay your plan on this lightning. Make your poems the corner pocket of men. I've greeted the blues itself. America may clean my dead body, but will never include me. There goes the poet. Killing without killing. Never mind this little painting of your language. May I be a meaningful lynching. A crow's passing. Good and dead by the afternoon.
A note to Michael. You put poetry at the end. No. No one wants to go from song to argument. So I apologize. I felt I need to leave about 20 minutes of silence. I've just spent the last few years writing a book, which I've just finished, and I can't resist reading from it tonight. It's the first time I've ever done that. It's called After Nations, and it is, as I say, an argument, and you can't really start an argument in the middle. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the book. It's 500 pages, and at some point I'll stop. You almost certainly live in a nation state. By the way, is there anyone in the audience who is not a citizen of a nation state? Okay, so that's... You almost certainly live in a nation state like 99.75% of our species. This is recent. In 1900, only about 25% of the world's population lived in a recognizably national state, of which there were no more than 50, compared to nearly 200 today. These were concentrated in Europe and Latin America. In Asia, we might count 7, Japan, Siam, Nepal, Bhutan, Afghanistan, and Persia, though the last 2 had lost much of their sovereignty to imperial powers. Africa boasted 2, Liberia and Ethiopia, though the latter had been a multinational empire and was still in the early stages of setting up the institutions of a modern state. The rest of the world comprised colonial possessions of the European states and Japan, a few large land empires, and many small principalities. Technically speaking, the destiny of 8/10 of humanity was controlled by just 11 rulers: the Chinese, Russian, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman emperors, and the political heads of Britain, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, Japan, and the United States. That situation was in many ways more normal than what we know today. The last 5 millennia have typically seen a great diversity of coexisting political forms, sometimes overlapping and symbiotic, sometimes distant and incommensurable. Within that diversity, the most conspicuous large-scale formations were transnational empires. But everything changed in the 20th century. Under the especial influence of the United States, the political system was standardized and a single administrative form extended to the world. With very few exceptions, an end was declared not only to empires, but also to city-states, duchies, principalities, emirates, sultanates, caliphates, khanates, agencies, princely states, colonies, suzerains, dependencies, mandates, tributaries, condominia, and protectorates. Recent though it is, the nation-state takeover is projected backwards in history. For at their very moment of creation, nation-states present themselves as antique. Even long extinct animals are ascribed nationality. Thomas Jefferson regarded mastodon fossils from the Hudson Valley as prophecies of the United States of America's mammoth destiny. National museums deploy human relics in such a way as to suggest that ancient societies were already, say, Mexican or Syrian. The Arab Republic of Egypt, founded in 1953, stakes a natural claim to the Rosetta Stone, which was commissioned in 196 BC by a Greek-speaking pharaoh of Macedonian descent and unearthed in Alexandria by French engineers in 1799. Leonardo da Vinci is described as an Italian humanist, and Luther a German theologian. Those nations were not dreamed of in their day. On postage stamps, Rabindranath Tagore lends his face to the Republic of India, though the poet lived all his life in the British Empire and disparaged national attachments. Patriotism cannot be our final spiritual shelter, he wrote. My refuge is humanity. The nation state has consumed the past. It has also consumed our hearts. Shortly after children learn their difference from birds and animals, they are taught that they are Chilean or Thai, and emotionally constituted in a way only other Chileans or Thais may understand. For Lord Byron, one of the pioneers of modern Western feeling, this national spirit was the most heroic subject of poetry. His desire for eternal Greece to be liberated from transitory Ottoman subjugation continues to pulsate in so many other contexts today. I dreamed that Greece might still be free. In the century and a half following Greek independence, many of the world's peoples cultivated a similar pathos, which they operationalized into anti-colonial struggles. The feeling was subsequently enshrined at the heart of their new states and turned into national poetry, music, art, and cinema. Many people still associate these feelings of modern belonging with the loftiest human possibilities, hence the powerful emotions that are generated when they are brought together at the Olympic Games, for instance, or the United Nations headquarters in New York. Most of all, the nation-state has consumed our politics. Whatever freedoms it offers are founded in this primordial unfreedom. We cannot not belong to a nation-state. We cannot reject the nation's citizenship or taxes. We cannot decline its law in favor of some others. We cannot step outside its territorial circuits. A Mexican may not vote in a US election, though she may have as much justification as any US citizen. French taxpayers do not dispense unemployment benefit in Niger, though they may bear much responsibility for that country's disarray. We may certainly not refuse the nation's security system and mobilize instead our own army. All our political capacities are given over to this one monopoly of the nation-state, which has stripped us of every other kind. I am going to finish soon, don't worry. In 2018, when I began writing this book, that monopoly was assailed by signs and portents. I was living between four countries, the United States, India, France, and the United Kingdom, all of which were consumed by questions about unscrupulous or malevolent leadership, about their wrecking of hitherto sacred customs and contracts, and about their inability to manage such growing issues as economic inequality, ecological degradation, and the technological manipulation of truth. I was studying other countries too and teaching in yet more. Everywhere there seemed to be a sense not only that state purposes were becoming sterner and more removed from popular needs, but also that political conversation was increasingly designed to distract from that reality. Professional commentators tended to see these developments in so many local terms, turning for their explanations to national histories, cultures, and institutions. But that did not explain the conspicuous parallels between countries, and it ignored the fact that our nation-state system was just that, a single integrated political and economic system. As I watched the reorganization of power within and between nations, I came to believe we were passing through not a set of disconnected national crises, but a transition rather in our global arrangements. The most conspicuous symptom of this transition certainly was the contortion of the nation state and the resulting unraveling of political cultures built up over decades. To move beyond symptoms, however, it was necessary to consider the grand unity of the nation-state system itself. How did this system arise? What purpose did it serve? And above all, what stage had it reached in its life cycle? Thank you.
So I've written a short monologue for Cardboard Citizens, a UK theatre company, for their More Than One Story, the anthology, following the success of their award-winning film series, More Than One Story, which aimed to amplify the voices of those who've lived experience of homelessness and poverty in the UK. You can watch the film series on Cardboard Citizens' YouTube channel. The anthology will be published in association with Big Issue and Nick Hearn Books later this year. More Than One Story, the anthology, will be more than a collection. It will be a living archive, a diary of our time. Other writers involved include Mallory Blackman, Chris Bush, Michelle Deswat, Inua Ellams, and Joelle Taylor, as well as the 9 monologues commissioned for the More Than One Story film series and writers selected from an open call submissions. My monologue is entitled, I Know What I Did and I Don't Regret It. So lights up on stage, a woman or femme or non-binary person stands alone under a spotlight, speaks with a focused yet dangerous calm. I think I've done something. No, I know I've done something. Less than an hour ago, I watched as it took its last breath, collapsed in a pool of its own dividends. At first, I wasn't sure it was him, so I followed just to be certain. I watched as he floated through cash points, denying people their own wages. Watched him ride a neon green rental bike 2 meters, then toss it into a canal just for the thrill. I saw him whisper into landlords' ears, more, you deserve more. Scream into babies' faces, you aren't enough, you'll never be enough. Watched as he turned heads away from the homeless, seduce and weaken the will of all of those it infected, laugh at climate collapse, mock the workers he called essential, only to discard them like used masks. I saw him stroll the high street like he owned it, because he did. And still, people watched his back, worshipped him, desired to be him. You see, love could never kill him. It, whatever it calls itself. I know love is powerful, transformative even, but it doesn't speak that language. He only understands extraction, possession, profit. There are people in the streets now, marching, dancing, weeping, laughing, some throwing computers from 8th-floor office windows, others abandoning buses mid-route, like suddenly they remembered they had feet. Something's shifting. It's starting, finally. It began with dinner, Mayfair, candlelight, crystal champagne flutes, sweating like the polar ice caps. He wore an ugly suit stitched from unpaid overtime, colonial linen, and a cologne of stolen dreams. He smiled with the teeth of men who never say thank you. You've done so well for yourself, he smiled, as if my survival was a performance for his approval, as if making it out alive meant he deserved some sort of gratitude. The menu was everything I'd never had growing up. Amuse-bouche, Augelia cheese, scallops, thyme, espresso-infused rambutan, ichigo daifuku, tofu, yuba. He ordered for me, talked at me about bootstraps like he'd invented them, about free markets like they were actually free, and my resilience like it was a brand he could invest in. I swallowed, I smiled, I sighed. He couldn't tell the difference though, didn't even notice I wasn't eating. I waited until dessert, something golden and flaming. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a gravity knife. I 3D printed it, #women in STEM. The type of blade sharpened in kitchens where the gas meter clicks like a time bomb. He said, be reasonable. I replied, that's exactly what I stopped being. I slid the blade in gently, quietly, like slicing into a ripe avocado, right between the ribs where austerity lives. He bled shareholder profits. Is that all you've got? He gurgled. He fought back. He hit like Thanos in a three-piece suit who weightlifts and drinks protein shakes made of price gouging. It's hard to kill something so practiced at surviving off of everyone else. But eventually, he started to feel something flood his veins. That would be the poison I laced the knife with. I've survived deeper cuts. One to him was never going to be enough. I will never forget the shock on his face as his legs buckled and his spine, a stack of 0-hour contracts, snapped like twigs. He lay on the floor, twitching, muttering tax evasion schemes like prayers. I whispered, I'm not your miracle, I'm your reckoning. The diners froze around us, clutching their cutlery as if it were evidence, not screaming, not moving, just waiting. They'll call it a tragedy, of course. They always do when someone kills their abuser and lives. Tomorrow's headlines will say I was radicalized by poverty or feminism or free school meals, not that I was tired of being grateful for crumbs while he gorged on cake. Breaking news, the suspect was last seen leaving Mayfair calmly without paying the bill. Authorities are warning the public not to idolize them. Do not call them a hero. They are considered very dangerous and dangerously armed with ideas. You want to kill capitalism? You need strategy, fluency, rage. You need to know it won't negotiate because it answers to no one, yet demands everyone answer to it. And now, it's dead. I walked out into the city and people were looking in each other's eyes again, saying hello without the fear of debt. And me? I sleep just fine. Knife under my pillow just in case his cousins come calling. This isn't a confession. This is a call to action. Because in the world to come, we won't need borders. We won't need bosses. We won't need bodily surveillance. Only imagination. Only courage. Only everything we were told we didn't deserve. So what are you going to do with our freedom?
I'm reading an excerpt from a short story called New Year's Story. On the morning of the first day of the year, Nell is looking over her bookshelves while listening to a news podcast. She'd made a single New Year's resolution to declutter her small apartment, starting with getting rid of some of her books. On the podcast, a journalist is explaining why January 1st is such a common birthday in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Nell's eye lands on the spine of a thin paperback by a French writer, Édouard Levé. She pulls it from the shelf and reads the back cover. Édouard Levé was born on January 1st, 1965. She knows that many people see coincidences as evidence of some kind of pattern underlying everyday life, some mysterious element connecting human beings to the world and to one another. It takes a heart of winter to accept that whatever happens could just as easily have happened differently or not at all. Remarkable coincidences. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, both authors of the Declaration of Independence, dying on the same day, 50 years later, and that day being the 4th of July, are proof enough for some of the existence of God. Though Nell doesn't share these beliefs, she doesn't doubt something else she's heard, that the experience of a coincidence can cause the release of dopamine in a person's brain. She has also discovered that Agatha Christie was right. Once a coincidence happens, others can start piling up in the most astonishing way. In the book she is holding, a man tells the story of a friend who killed himself years ago. Days after delivering the manuscript, Levé, who was 42, also killed himself. Not a coincidence. According to the podcast, many Afghans and Pakistanis did not celebrate birthdays as they did in the West. In some towns, it was not unusual for parents to neglect to record the day their child was born. If there came a time when a date of birth was required for some kind of official application, say, they frequently chose January 1st. It was also the most popular birthday among Afghans and Pakistanis who had not learned how to read or write, like marking an X in place of a signature. Nell imagines other listeners struck the way she is by this, a person's birthday considered a detail of no importance, people living their whole lives without ever needing to know something that those like her are used to providing over and over, those whose lives would have come to a halt without it. She is reminded of another story she once heard, that in some parts of the world, there are societies that have no system for collecting garbage. Rather than being discarded, everything non-perishable is repurposed or recycled. She was already aware that her own country produced more garbage than any other country, about 4.5 pounds per citizen per day, 3 times the global average. Nell honestly doesn't think she produces quite that much, but there is no escaping the shame. World Trash Leader, what a title. And second worst polluter after China. She'd first heard about Edouard Levé's book from a friend, a keen admirer of Levé, and of this book especially. Her friend had wanted to include it on a reading list for a college course he taught, but then thought better of it. He was afraid that some students would find the book, or even just the title, Suicide, triggering. When Nell read the book, she too had admired it, and though she doubts she'll read it again, very few of her books does she expect ever to read again, she decides it's a keeper and returns it to the shelf. She remembers her 8th grade English class, how one day the teacher handed out copies of a book they were going to read and then took them back only days later. "I thought you were mature enough," he said, "but some of your mothers think not." The teacher's name was Mr. Boyle, and she can still hear the disdain in his voice for those mothers. She had started reading the book, but soon forgot all about it, except for one scene, a man sitting on a bed and talking with a woman who is cutting her toenails. The man very nervous, the woman unkempt. Even after Nell no longer remembered the book's title, the scene stayed with her, and many years later came the surprise of happening on it again while reading Flannery O'Connor's novel, Wise Blood. She thought of Mr. Boyle, who'd always seemed somewhat out of place, not only because male junior high school teachers were few, but because of his looks. He was more like an actor playing a teacher, tall and svelte, with metallic blue eyes and hair that, though silver before he reached 30, was still thick and sleek. She imagined him excited at the idea of introducing O'Connor's writing to his students, only to be thwarted by Mrs. Burke and Mrs. Cuoco and Mrs. Kronsky, mocked by Nell's own mother as the 3 harpies of the PTA. But as Nell recalls, at the age of 13, she had not been mature enough to comprehend what she was reading, and now she has to wonder how Mr. Boyle would have dealt with the encounter between Hazel Motes and Mrs. Watts on what men's room graffiti advertised as the friendliest bed in town. Her friend who'd wanted to teach suicide admitted that one of the main reasons he'd chosen it was because it was short, a novella. His students wouldn't read long books, he'd said. Many teachers had stopped assigning whole books at all, bowing to students' preference for excerpts, 20 pages max. "Can't you just summarize the books for us?" one frustrated student had asked. And few teachers were willing to teach O'Connor's work anymore because of her frequent use of the N-word and biographical evidence of her unapologetic bigotry. Back in Nell's own college days, assignments totaling more than 1,000 pages a week were normal. Ulysses, Moby Dick, 100 Years of Solitude, The Magic Mountain, Rousseau's Confessions, Paradise Lost. These were just some of the books she'd been expected to plow through for one semester's courses. and every one of them a keeper, lugged along over decades as she moved from place to place. Strange to think that that kind of reading was vanishing, one of many changes in her lifetime, like America's repudiation of democracy that she'd never imagined would come to pass. Not that Nell sees any appeal in marathon reading today, and when she conjures up that young person pulling an all-nighter in a dorm room so messy it looks like the narcs tossed it, it's as if the two of them are separate people, as if she is no longer that woman at all. Throughout school and for years after, she had read books that, no matter the page count, she'd hated to see come to an end. Reading a book now, she often finds herself thinking that it has no business being as long as it is. This novel, she'll think, is really just a supersized short story. Or in the case of nonfiction, an essay. Can't you just summarize? Then she might end up skimming the book or deciding to stop reading it altogether. Even poetry tests her patience at times, and she worships the concision of haiku. She takes another book down from the shelf and flips through it until she finds the poem by Busan that she is looking for. New Year's first poem written, now self-satisfied, oh haiku poet.
I'm going to read an excerpt from a chapter entitled Detachment. And it began as a meditation, which I won't read, on abolitionist Frederick Douglass's description of his escape from slavery, in which he described having stolen his arm, stolen his leg from the man who legally owned him. And so this is a meditation on the property of the body and the amputation, the conceptual amputation of turning the body into property. And so I teach theories of homo economicus, legal personhood and the primacy of juridical autonomy. I spend a great deal of time thinking about the body as property and wondering to what extent any of us are truly autonomous rather than just interconnected puzzle bits of each other. Do we have anything like a considered ethic of care for how we borrow, attach, lean on, fit together, or abandon the pieces of one another? Where is it that a single body ends and the complex social webbing of prosthesis begins? And one of the weirder cases exploring this question involved South Carolinian John Wood, whose leg was amputated after an airplane crash in 2004, and whose subsequent saga is recorded in a very sad but funny little film called Finders Keepers that you can find on Amazon. But Wood, desiring to be eventually buried as a bipedal entity, had the leg, after it was amputated, embalmed and placed in a storage unit with his other belongings. But he fell behind on the rental fees. And literally the contents of this was sold on Storage Wars. It was sold at auction to one Shannon Wisnant, who found the leg carefully wrapped and nestled inside a barbecue smoker. Wisnant called the police, who traced it back to Wood. Wood insists that the leg be returned, given his sincere belief that, detached or not, it was his because it had been part of him. Wisnant, however, asserted that it was his because he was what the law recognizes as a, quote, good faith purchaser for value. And so Wisnant hoped to put the leg on display in a homemade house of horrors, charging a hefty price for the viewing, $10 for adults, $5 for children. Halloween's just around the corner, he explained. So the extractive case of Wood v. Wisnant, which actually went to court, exemplifies how the language habits of rigid contractarianism can contribute to imbalances in the ethics of care and broader public interests. Indeed, the very odd icon of John Wood's lost leg is a nearly irresistible subject for allegorizing, uniting it to broader dilemmas of family, market, and of language itself, the vehicles of religious communion, community, and cohesion. Thus, it may be legally right, but affectively wrong, when Shannon Wisnant referred to the leg as his embodied property, my extra foot, he called it, and he actually had that inscribed on a cap. Like any good businessman, he was careful to point out that by purchasing the smoker and its contents with legal tender, he had thereby incorporated the same into his estate, status, profile, and profit. To top it off, he embraced his brand, so-called, by advertising himself as the footman. However, to John Wood, the leg was part of me, not separable as a leg, but rather conceptually indivisible from himself or his body. To John Wood, that leg was intrinsically beyond commercial exchange, sacred terrain whose amputation was a symbolic as well as a physical loss. The bony relic was a palpable memorial to the freeze-framed, life-changing moment when he lost his leg in a plane crash that killed his father as well. That leg, removed from the body of which it was formerly an integral part, was a reminder of the day, the marker of a grave. And the ghoulishness of this situation should not obscure the legal issues at stake, should a commodity interest in the contents of a storage unit trump the sacrosanctity of corporal integrity. Are discarded body parts alienable in contract? Or do they fall within the realm of what we deem inalienable under the Constitution? And the very question foregrounds the peculiar way legal discourses have the power to create wholly incompatible referential worlds. In Anglo-American jurisprudence, contract law concerns itself almost exclusively with the interests of private parties who assign value to the object of their contract according to their own subjective sense of worth. Thus, made property, that leg as object, has no value other than the agreed price of transfer. One definition of property is that it confers a right to exclude. In other words, the value that an owner of an object, a property object, that owner places upon it excludes or supersedes whatever value it may have had to prior owners or to those not party to the contract. The object is objectified precisely because it has no stable or inherent value. And in contrast to contract law, constitutional law governs the realm of polity, civil life, and civil rights. The Declaration of Independence celebrates life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by establishing, at least conceptually, what we think of as in law as an inherency of civic worth. This is embodied in the notion of legal personhood, again, as unalienable, a human-centered pricelessness that can't be bargained away on an auction block. And within the meaning-making system of contract law, John Wood's leg becomes an inanimate thing by contract. I'm sorry, my phone just jumped a page, excuse me. John Wood's leg becomes an inanimate thing, its status affixed by no one but the storage company and the buyer. Within the semantic realm of constitutional law, however, the leg may be seen as an extension of Wood's dignitarian interest in the integrity of his body, autonomy of mind, and general civic regard. And this latter is the ethic that is supposed to protect us, if imperfectly, from the commercial marketing of body parts, legally shields us from the predations of grave robbing. This is also the constitutive promise of egalitarian community, that no one of us is worth more than another. The core value of constitutional citizenship is that we do not eye each other for personal profit or as prey in extractive mining adventures. In this foundational jurisprudential distinction between constitution and contract, between the vivacity of righted humanity and the civic death of objectification, is at the heart of the kind of inquiry I continue to do that is at the heart of slavery's complex discursive legacy and its connection to the economic system with which we live today. Thank you.
Cité de lumière, light site, expanded translation after UNESCO, entre la vie et le rêve. Alliterative diamond. Quand j'étais plus jeune, j'avais des réserves lumineuses. When I was young, when younger, I had light stockpiled, step wells of luminosity, seams of gleaming, inward glow. Brightness had my back, hot buttresses, radiant underpinnings, unreserved reservoirs. My fashion walked sunrays, failings wheeled to sunrise. Doing was floating, dear and perpetual. Shining went into me, should not go out. Look, we have resources. My life, you have my light. The flight into Egypt, dedicated to Yusuf M. Qasmiya. He, sharper than the cutting edge, he angles, handles, makes tables four square, the most tablish tables. No one else dare work so plainly. Tables to hide beneath when roofs fall in. Tables to seat dogs at, tables to... He's not about breaks. The grain seems pleased, in place, glistens from its listening square, chiseled as if by a sigh. Morning star and evening, slow, comfortable. So, when seamed with sleep, his eyelids illuminated from outside as if in a house on fire, he listened plainly, once received the burning word, exile. He chose without hesitation, loving as if there were a choice, acted on it with foursquare certainty. In truth, in blood-red haste, he rose and woke his love. Difficult love for Joanne Limburg. Twilight means tomorrow, is today, today, tomorrow. Sense a lunar calendar nuance. Sense the thresholds on the open street. You by instinct covering your hair. Unmarked, the sunset means tomorrow is today, today, tomorrow. For this I could love you, but I never met a face like mine at noon, defying shade by loving shade. Always interiorly at twilight, about to light the lamp, to utter words neither you nor I could translate. Today, tomorrow, the full sun of your absence unmarked, the open street holds a sacred space. Turn and live. The sacrifice got up off the altar. Become an archaeologist of your lungs. Windrush is the name of a ship, not of a generation. Windrush is the name of a ship, not of any situation. Windrush is the witchcraft name of a ship, waterlining us into uncharted, obligatory, and perpetual perpetual migration. The sacrifice got up off the altar. Become an archaeologist of your lungs. The naming of ships is a terrible thing, the terrible mother tell me. I came in a ship called Threat Vector. I came in a ship called Dust to Dust. Who came in a ship called Willing Ambassador? Who came in a ship called Evidence of Funds? Did I dance with you on the blue carpet? Was your ship called the Providence? The Invitation? Was your ship called Guerrilla Diplomacy? Go back where you came from, citizens, says terrible motherland. Whether that means overseas or going back under the sea, citizens, life forms. Listen to the lady. She is a consultant anonymizer, a high mobility native of Fortress Trolley. We are phantasmagorically, primarily and politically lightless and all-bearing creatures, put down, not undrowned, gone beyond, beyond drowned. The sacrifice got up off the altar. Become an archaeologist of your lungs. A woman is sweeping the sea. In the father's words, in Kamau's words, a woman is sweeping the sea. They still say in English a ship is a she. Who say so? The ship is a thing of itness, witness, and creator, fury of awake, raking over of witness. The island squalor is sweeping the carpet in her London digs, sweeping the sea grey, the pea super carpet, in no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, London's aspirational digs. That carpet had etiquette. It demanded her to accept it in its misty itness as grey, grey like ethical practice, dove or pigeon grey. Could the island scholar trust loose-talking fibre after she studied the French liberator Charles de Gaulle, who dismissed our archipelago as specks of dust? She sweeps, and a pattern emerges, stabilizing as many colors, stabilizing as a miracle, a many-colored pattern wanting to dance beside her feet after she was forced to breathe in dust, settling and unsettling, the miracle of many colors. The sacrifice got up off the altar. Become an archaeologist of your lungs.
I'm going to read a scene from Death of England at Delroy, which is the second of a trilogy of plays that I wrote along with Clint Dyer. The scene involves Delroy being racially profiled, arrested, and charged for a crime he didn't commit. And as an act of protest, he chooses to defend himself in court, which, as you'll probably hear, was not a good idea. You may or not be aware, Your Honour, that I've managed to fall out, disagree with, to make vex with 4 different lawyers who had agreed to take on my case. All pro bono, I should add. By the way, vex means anger, as in to make angry in Jamaican patois. Thought I'd clear that up as language as part of the whole point I'm trying to make here. Anyways, what I'm trying to say badly is that they, the lawyers, didn't want me to do what I'm doing now, a closing speech. So we parted ways. Now why, you could ask? It's unlikely to carry favour with the magistrates. Leave this to me, trust me. You see, I think it was all in an effort not to be me. They didn't want me to be me, Your Honour, because me isn't good enough to be understood or respected or taken seriously by the likes of you. Now, I thought that was kind of off-key, rude about you. About your level of intellect and bandwidth to understand human behaviour or character. Also, it kind of assumed you'd be racist and perhaps fall in some biases, as I believe my case has pointed out. So I'm going to be as honest in myself as much as I can. I'm going to be me in the hope you can see me and also understand the point in which it went wrong with the police, to try to convince you I'm a good guy, stopped on a bad day. Anyway, now you've already heard of my account of what happened and the conflicting accounts. Yeah, all right, I guess you don't need to answer, it was kind of rhetorical. And of course, the shove, as they put it, and the bad language could be seen as crosses, as in bad behaviour. But I'd like you to think of this. When a man's put under pressure, as you know I was, as any dutiful father would feel on the day to the hospital to see the birth of their child, I was prang, dented, out of shape, prang. So that's how I felt rushing to the hospital on that, having got the message late, prang. Excited, but prang, which is also understandable, right? A little nod would do, Your Honour, just so I know they're calm and say, oh, never mind. But you see, the way I use language is different, right? It's not wrong, it's just different. A swear word to you is an adjective to me. It's all right, Mum. Sorry, my mum's screwing at me. Boy, upset with me. Actually, my mum, boy, now she is an amazing woman. But you lot, not you personally, but yeah, maybe you, as you did nothing, I bet, really hurt her and me. The Windrush scandal? Well, yes, this is about my case, actually. It's not quite what I've written down. You could argue it's a detour, but, well, hear me out still. I think in talks of the same thing, culture, a disrespected culture, a misrepresented culture, because, like, everyone knew she was British, right? She had every right to be here and ting, yet you people, or to be fair, your people, the people you done put in charge, had hatched, concocted a devious plan to rid yourself of us. My mum, who I'd seen work herself into the ground, paying her taxes, put a bloody life at risk as a frontline worker she did. She was to be told, come out. But here, what now? I think I felt it worse than she did, because I have to stay here, because I love where I live, love that I've built. It's also, I know it's mine, so I'm like lost, because I'm made complicit. I'm made her enemy, because I'm powerless to do anything. So where do I put that, Hannah? Where? Where do I house that anger? Where do I get to shoot that anger at? Because to me, it feels like all of you just told my mum, you can't stay here anymore. We don't really want you here in the first place. It makes a knot in all of us that can't be untied. So when PC knobhead over there, hear me out, when he tells me not to swear, like I'm his chatter or something, standing there, the complete embodiment of the wankers that wanted to send my mum to a country she had never lived in, that wanted to disregard all her efforts to make something of her life here, to be a model Brit. It's not only hard to take, it's bloody hard to do, to not swear. It's, no, don't cry, Mum, please don't. Don't let them see you cry. They love seeing black women cry. Please, Mum, don't. They seem to love it though, innit? Innit though? Every drama we're in, get the black woman to well. Maybe she could shout God. God, I mean, if I have to watch Viola Davis crying through her nose again, I swear, that's it. It's made you laugh. They fucking love that. So don't give them that. Mum, please, just know I see you, Mum. We see you. We love you. We know what you've done and what you're doing, so don't cry, don't. Your Honour, I couldn't help myself. I can't help it. I couldn't help it. It's part of my culture, my working class culture, my British culture. It don't make me feel bad, mate. I wasn't even swearing at him. I said, oh, for fuck's sake, to myself. Because I was going to miss the birth of my child, a one-time event made for me to share with my woman, and he was killing that stone dead. Dead. I mean, anything can happen in childbirth, right? She could have died or something. The baby could have. I needed to be there. So, of course, I lost my cool, my focus. Of course, I forgot my place. Wouldn't you? The context, Your Honour. Everything is about the context. How can we blanketly throw these laws, rules, punishments, attitudes down, throw those morals down, threaten my livelihood without any empathy, without truly understanding and allowing for the context? The context. How? Unless you happen to be some kind of cunt.
So here's a character from my last book, The Wren, Carmel. Not an entirely likable person. At least she doesn't like herself much, but maybe you will give her a bit of a break. Just before and after a transformational event in her life. An odd bunch over the years, her former lovers. You wouldn't exactly invite them to the same party, or to any party, some of them. Though she was a bit of an outlier herself, Carmel realised. She looked at the girls from school who found one or another man to marry. Oh, he's lovely. And could not help but find it all a bit high-pitched. Shortly after college, Adamar Grant announced her engagement. That is actually what she called it. And Carmel was glad not to be asked for bridesmaid. Orla Hughes did the honours. And her puffy apricot dress was the only bit of comic relief in an otherwise relentless day. The groom was not the bed creaker from Capel Street, but another version of the same thing. Solid, backslapping sound. Good man, right you are, careful now, there you go. In all fairness, he said in his speech 6 times, Carmel could not imagine what it would be like to live with such a person. Adamar would, in all fairness, be a long time hanging his washing out on the line. I'll give it 6 months, she said to Orla Hughes. But 2 years later, Adamar was still very much married with a baby on the way. And that was another hoo-ha. From the coy refusals of alcohol to the coy announcement to the considerable amounts of self-obsession. Adamar didn't seem to realise that this thing would happen to her body, whether she was stupid or clever, or in a coma. She thought it was in some way about her. The baby quickly made it known that it was, in fact, massively about the baby. From the last-minute epidural to the grade 4 tear to the 6 weeks of colic, not to mention all the love required, often of a hysterical kind. The same mixture of cooing and shrieking around the cot that happened around the wedding. The sweetness of it set Carmel's teeth on edge. It was the sound women make, she thought, when they are offering their lives up for slow destruction. And loving it. And doing it for love, and feeling sorry for people who did not have this love in their lives, because, my goodness, it was the winning ticket. It was success itself. It was the only game in town. So a few years later, Carmel has a baby herself. And here she is. Her early cries were so thin and pathetic, Carmel woke up to them dreaming of the moon. It was summer, and they were both often naked, more or less. The baby lay on the loose skin of Carmel's deflated stomach, and she was such a damp little thing. She sweated and wriggled as though surprised by the emptiness of so much air. She's a single mother, Carmel. They did not leave the house for a week. And then they really had to leave the house to get more milk formula, even though Carmel had 3 more days of milk formula left in the cupboard. Hunger was different now. When Carmel was hungry for her child, it felt like murder or religion. It was a fearsome thing. It took 2 hours to get the baby ready and into the lethal, incomprehensible sling. This button, this clasp, before Carmel could walk out into the loud world with a creak in her ass and her breasts rock solid on either side of its lolling head. This happened despite the fact that the baby was bottle-fed. Carmel's body could not be stopped. It kept trying to feed the skinned little animal she carried, mewling on her front. Because birth was not the end of pregnancy, she thought. It was just pregnancy externalized. Her shoes didn't fit, so she was wearing slippers on the street. She had no choice. Walking was also difficult. Pain had been hard to locate recently. There had been too much of it, such an explosion of agonies that afterwards Carmel could not gather it all back in. But her thoughts were sweet-minded and abstract, and this also amused her. The blue of the sky on that August day was unforgettable. Look, Nell, the sky. cerulean blue, the colour solid and blank and fathomless. Carmel stood under it with her baby on her front, two bare souls. For some reason to do with her pelvis, the midwife had set her on her side, and someone, maybe even Carmel herself, had to hold up the top leg high to allow the baby through. This leg was heavy as well as numb, and the midwife was a bitch who seemed to think that Carmel deserved all she had coming to her. Good woman, she said in a prissy voice that made Carmel want to kick her with the powerfully weighty top leg that was hooked, foot dangling mid-air. At which point, Adamar Grant walked through the door with a toddler in her arms, and they both looked, you couldn't do otherwise, between Carmel's legs. "Oh, well done," she said brightly. And as though dragged unwillingly away, kept repeating through the closing door, "You're doing great, Carmel. You're doing really well." Carmel did not need to be told how she was doing. She had survived worse. That is the thought that stuck in her head and would not leave. The chaos and the pain made sense to her because she was also, and quietly, somewhere else in the room. She was flat in the light that came from the window. She was tucked in the swish of the midwife's uniform. She was not, however, in this body they rolled onto its back, while through a distant ring of fire, the baby came. It was a storm. And the eyes that looked at her from the center of it were exactly right. Carmel had been alone all her life. Did I mention that? She had been alone since she was 12 years old. The baby knew all this. The baby carried the whole black universe with her in the pupil of her eye. She brought it through a gap that life itself had punched in Carmel's body. They looked at each other, and all of time was there. The baby knew how vast her mother's loneliness had been. Adamar drove them home from the hospital. In the boot of the car was a box of barely used baby clothes, washed, folded, organised by size, also a second box marked year 1 to 2, and another labelled toys, and this junk was paraded into the house and down to the garden room at the back, while Carmel sat on the sofa upstairs and lay the swaddled Baba on the wooden floor. She did this because if it was on the floor, it couldn't fall. What's she doing on the floor, Carmel? When Adamar laughed, Carmel considered what else might be done with a baby, and her friend picked her up and set her in Carmel's arms. "Hello, Nell. Hello, you." Thank you.